What's going on, everybody? Dots here, and today I'm bringing you guys my Magicka Sorcerer PvP build for the Elder Scrolls Online Ascending Tide patch. So my magsorc here on YouTube will have looked like it's changed a ton since last patch, but I did do a mid-patch update during Deadlands to change it to a much different style from the old, like, you know, Ice Wall Torex pack style to a more traditional magsorc. And honestly, the build has been working really well for me, and I've been enjoying it quite a lot. And thankfully, going from Deadlands into Ascending Tide, it really hasn't changed all that much. And again, the one good thing about magsorc, and is always a good thing about magsorc, is that because the class is so good, I feel like so many builds really do stand the test of time on the class, and this build is very solid. I don't think it's going to change much or go anywhere, and so I think it's a really fun, really viable setup. And it's what I've been enjoying a lot on my magsorc, and I hope it does work out for you guys as well. But like I always say before I get into my build videos, guys, this is just what I like, what I use, and what works for me on my Magicka Sorcerer. If you want to run something else, do something else, change something, please be my guest. This is just me simply sharing what is working for me and what I find success with here in the Ascending Tide patch. So without further ado, let's actually kick this video off, guys, and we're going to start with our singular monster piece, and that is going to be one piece of Shadowrend. So Shadowrend gives us a line of magic recovery. If I was optimally having a piece here, I would have a piece of Magma Incarnate, but I don't have a heavy helm with the correct trait on it. But basically, you just want a one-piece helmet that gives you Magicka recovery. I do run this build as a stage 3 vampire, and so because of that, I do need to get a decent amount of recovery to make sure that I can sustain that. And so Shadowrend gives me that one bonus that I need in order to make sure that that is possible. Now, the main 5-piece on the build here, guys, is going to be 5 pieces of Crafty Elfique. So this is going to just give us maximum Magicka. That's all it's going to do. Now, the reason I run Crafty Elfique is because I'm no longer running the pet, and so because of that, this is going to give us the most amount of Magicka for our, bang for our buck here. It's going to give us the biggest shield sizes that we could possibly get out of, with Crafty Elfique, and just you still want to stack maximum Magicka on magsorc. Magsorc is one of the only classes that's left that really cares about max stat because shields do scale with it, and shields are our primary source of defense. Basically, every other class has moved to spell or weapon damage, but magsorc is the last bastion of max stat, and so Crafty Elfique is going to give us the most that we can get outside of Necropotence, which would require a pet, which I don't run in the build, and so because of that, we do run the Crafty Elfique here. Now, I actually do run 2 pieces of trainee. So I run a trainee body piece and a trainee ring. This is going to give us 1400 maximum health and 1400 maximum Magicka. I find this really useful for the magsorc simply due to the fact that both of these lines are very helpful for us. As you know, if you've watched any amount of my build videos, I run at least a piece of trainee on most of my builds, not all of them, but most of them, simply due to the fact that it is a health meta, and because of that, I want to have trainee there to help pad my health. I find it to be quite valuable to get that 1400 maximum health, but specifically for the magsorc, the bonus to the max Magicka is also extremely helpful because, again, we're the only class really left that still cares about that max stat, and 1400 is a lot to get off of a single line, and so because of that, I actually do run those 2 pieces of trainee on the build to give us the boost to our max resource for bigger shield sizes, as well as our maximum health to give us a very respectable 28.5k health on a magsorc. And a lot of magsorcs run a lot less, but me personally, I still prefer a higher health pool. And so trainee just really helps get me there. Now, we do run on this build, and I'm going to explain my next 2 sets and then what you could change them to if you actually, farm and stuff. But I run the Marking Ring of Majesty on my magsorc. This gives us 200 spell damage and 2300 armor for every 3-piece sets that we are wearing. If you want to, in theory, you could also drop, Shadowrend and run a 3rd piece of trainee in order to get 300 spell damage and another 1157 armor. But because I'm playing this as a stage 3 vamp, I do personally find that sustain to be necessary. But you could obviously If you play the build and you don't find it necessary, you drop the Shadow Rend piece, stick on a third piece of trainee, and you can get more value out of Markin. But I really like Markin. It's one of my favorite mythics in the game. It probably is my favorite mythic in the game, and because I feel like it gives us a lot of value. You know, the spell damage is really, really nice for that offensive prowess as well as the healing. And then also the armor is very, very valuable. It makes us feel a lot tankier. I always notice it whenever I stick Markin on and get that extra armor, and it just makes us that much harder to kill while also giving us more offensive prowess. So I really, really do like Markin, and I think it combines really well with our next set to actually give us quite respectable spell damage even on a magsorc, and that is going to be willpower. So willpower gives us 732 maximum magicka and 204 spell damage. And so because of the way that I have my gear set up in this build, I end up having room for a 3-piece set bonus, and willpower just fits the bill really well. It gives us a big boost to maximum magicka, again helping out that max stat to give us those bigger shield sizes, with that spell damage also being extremely impactful on our offense, because I mean we have 3,300 unbuffed spell damage, and for a magsorc that is pretty decent. So I'm very happy with the stat profile that willpower gives the build. Now I know people are immediately going to jump to, but Dots Gaming, what about Ancient Grace? Not gonna lie, at least on PCNA, Ancient Grace is insanely expensive. It is ridiculous, the cost of it. And so if you want to run Ancient Grace here, be my guest. You'll get even more maximum magicka on that 3-piece. It will give you even bigger shield sizes, but the damage will be a little bit worse just because right now damage, you know, scales way better with, you know, spell damage over max stat. So you're kind of trading some, you know, offensive prowess for defensive prowess. So it's up to you if you want to make that decision. I'm not going to lie, guys. The main reason for me is just because the staves are just ridiculously priced. I have the jewelry, but the staves on PCNA are just insane. And I personally find that willpower still works extremely well, and it combines really, really well with Markin to give us very, very solid spell damage amount even on a magsorc. And so that's why I personally run that. But just because, again, for me, defensively, the build feels fine, and so I'd rather get stronger offense, which, again, willpower will help me get that. It's up to you guys, though. If you want to run the bigger shields, get Ancient Grace. It will work just as well here. And then another thing that you could do is you could sub out Markin for Death Dealer's Feat. That'll give you even bigger shield sizes, even more health to work with, as well as even more stam the longer you're in combat. I don't have it, so I use Markin, and personally, I do find that Markin works really, really well for me. So I would say if you want to just go for max mag, max shield, max everything, I would say, you know, try to sub out willpower for Ancient Grace and run DDF instead of Markin. But if you want to try this more spell damage oriented strategy while still having a respectable magicka pool, give Markin and willpower a try. It has been working extremely well for me, and I have a couple people that I know who play this build who've all said it works very, very well for them. So again, feel free to run this and try it. I do find it good, and I really enjoy it. So I do recommend giving it a shot. Now, guys, in terms of weights and traits and everything, magsorc is one of the last classes, in my opinion, still in 5 light. So we got 5 pieces of light on the build so that we can use that nice light armor shield. We also do run 1 piece of medium on the shoulder and 1 heavy on the helmet with full impen on the build. We run 1 tri-stack glyph. I do that just to get me over that 18k max stam. And then we run magicka on everything else. We have 1 spell cost reduction and 2 magicka recovery with triple arcane. We then run a sharpened absorb mag glyph on the front bar and a defending weapon damage glyph on the back bar. Now, guys, moving into our skills, our first skill is going to be Crushing Shock. So Crushing Shock is going to deal flame, frost, and shock damage against our enemies, and then if they're casting, it sets them off balance and stuns them for 3 seconds. This is my spammable of choice because I can't stand Elemental Weapon. I try to use it, I try to get used to it, and I just hate it, and I don't like it, and I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work for me. And so for me, I do prefer Crushing Shock. Crushing Shock also has the benefit of interrupting things, so anybody using snipe, anybody using dark conversion, anybody casting, you know, Jesus beam or whatever, you interrupt them. It's really good. You set them off balance and stun them. So Crushing Shock does have that utility outside of just the damage that it deals. And so it's definitely my spammable of choice. We also still do run Crystal Fragments. Crystal Fragments is going to be our primary burst in the build. You're typically never want to hard cast this. You always want to do the second part of the ability, which is casting a magic ability has a 35% chance of causing your next crystal frags to be instant, deals 66% more damage, and costs 50% less. So that is when you want to use crystal frags. You don't want to do the hard cast time on it. Now, be careful, because with all the ability lag and everything in the game, there are a lot of times where you're like spamming 2 to, like, if you crystal frags procs, you're spamming 2 to try to get it to go off, and then it'll finally go off, and then it'll lock you into a hard casted frags afterwards. It's extremely annoying, but just be aware that that may happen when you play magsorc. So just try to just only cast this though when you have it procced, and if you start hard casting, you can just block and end that. We also do run Haunting Curse. Haunting Curse is the second part of the burst package for the magsorc. So this is going to deal magic damage after 3.5 seconds, and then deal the same amount of magic damage again after additional 8.5 seconds. Now this is part of, I would say, like the 4-part burst of a magsorc. This also combines really well with power overload. So power overload is going to let you charge your fists with lightning, making your light and heavy attacks essentially just deal a shitload more shock damage. So this is going to cause your light attacks to now deal 12.2k shock damage. So basically your goal combo in the build is going to be to, with power overload on and with Haunting Curse on your target, you're going to want to have a light attack with your shock glyph, your power overload damage, and you do that light attack, which will cause all of those things, and then you click a procced crystal frags, and you have all that hit your target the second the Haunting Curse dot deals damage. So that could either be 3.5 seconds after or another 8.5 seconds after. So basically you'll have 1 gabillion different sources of damage hitting all at the same time, causing a massive burst of damage to hit your opponents. So you want to try to line up, like I said, that light attack with the overload, the frags proc with the Haunting Curse. This will also cause, again, your light attack damage plus the shock glyph, and it's just a lot of damage to hit all simultaneously. We also do run Elemental Drain in the build. This is going to give us our major breach buff, which is going to just enable a lot of damage, but it also gives us minor Magicka Steal, giving us an effective 340 Magicka recovery. Again, I do run this build as a stage 3 vampire, and so because of that, the extra recovery that comes from Ele Drain, I personally find to be quite valuable. We also do have Streak. Really quick though, actually, I just want to mention one more thing about Ele Drain. I also find Ele Drain to be really useful this patch because healing over time is so high, and so because of that, this enables just more burst because we have higher pen. So this just allows us to penetrate through more of our opponent's defense, which is extremely helpful. Now again, talking about Streak. So Streak, one of the best abilities in the magsorc kit. This lets us move just unparalleled mobility moving around the battlefield. It is really good. On top of that, it's also our primary CC for the build. This effect cannot be blocked. So basically what you do is to enable that whole burst combo I was talking about. Let's say you have somebody in front of you, you basically streak through them, turn around, and then just shoot all of that damage at them, and they're stunned and get hit for 87 gabillion different forms of damage all at the same time. So Streak just really enables your damage and lets you line it up, CC big groups of enemies. It's just a very good skill, and I personally prefer it on my front bar just because it does also serve the purpose of my primary stun. So I find having it on my front bar way easier than having it on my back bar. Now, moving into the back bar, guys, we have 2 different damage shields on the build. We have Dampened Magic and Hardened Ward. These are just our 2 shields on the build. I typically like to run my magsorc as 2 shields, sometimes 3. I'll even run Healing Ward sometimes, but I'm not right now. But I typically, for this type of strategy, always do run Dampened Magic and Hardened Ward. These 2 shields combined give you quite a bit of defense, and then you can basically put your rapid regen underneath, and these will essentially protect that heal and let you get healed up. So that's why we do stack the max Magicka, because these 2 shields do scale with it, and so it's also why we run 5 light for Dampened Magic. So that is why we have these 2 shields on the bar, and then we do run again rapid regen for that huge healing over time. Massive tooltip over 5 seconds. This is going to basically be what heals us up while our shields hold. I have run Healing Ward here in the past, but I just find Rapid Regen to be way more friendly right now, not only just in terms of how much healing I feel like I get out of it. I feel like Rapid Regen is also a lot better in Battlegrounds when Bastion isn't present. The heal tooltip feels really good right now. It's also way cheaper than Healing Ward, so my sustain feels better. So I just really prefer Rapid Regen right now, but you can absolutely run Healing Ward here if you want to. But for me, I have been preferring Rapid Regen as my heal over time of choice this patch. We also do run Boundless Boundless Storm. Boundless Storm is going to be our major resolve buff. It also does give us major expedition, which I find quite useful, and it deals a little bit of shock damage as enemies come near us every second for 30 seconds. But also this does give us maximum drip points, which is another reason why we use it, because you look super badass while it is up. I mean, look at the drip, dude. So we run Boundless Storm for all of those reasons. Dark Conversion is going to be a heal for us, as well as a sustain tool. This is going to turn your stamina into health and magicka, as well as give you a heal over time. So basically, you know, this combined with rapid regen is going to be where your healing comes from, and then that will be all protected by your damage shields. This is also really good to passively give you magicka over time, so you definitely do want to make sure that that bonus is rolling. We also do run Life Giver on the back bar. I do really like having a defensive ult on the back bar for my magsorc, and I find Life Giver to be the best morph of the two different Resto Staff morphs for me. And then I also do turn this into 3 different morphs. I have Rapid Regen, Healing Ward. This I'll probably change, to be honest, to Combat Prayer. I don't really feel the need for Blessing of Restoration. This just gives you minor resolve for a really long time. This is 20 seconds of minor resolve, and then it gives you a bigger burst heal on the actual Blessing of Restoration. But I'll probably change this to Combat Prayer for the minor berserk to increase my damage, but it doesn't really matter which morph of this you run. You can do Blessing of Restoration for more defense or Combat Prayer for more offense. It is personally going to be up to you. Now, guys, in terms of our stat pool, we do run 49 into magicka and 15 into health to get me to that, you know, health amount that I want to. I like to have a little bit more than 28k maximum health. So I run 41.6k max mag, 28.3k max health with 18.2k max stam with 1678 magicka recovery. I run 3300 spell damage, which for a magsorc is very solid. So very happy with that amount. You saw the tooltips are all looking really solid. You run 8700 unbuffed pen, but with the major breach that we have from Ellie Drain, that's going to go up by another 6000. We do run Spell Parapod, so our crit's going to go up by quite a bit. We have 15.5k spell resist and 11.9k physical on the front bar, going up to 18.8 and 15.1 on the back bar with 2200 critical resistance. We're on the Atronach Mundus, Bewitched Sugar Skulls, Tri-Stat Food. We are a stage 3 vampire. And for our potion, we do run the Alliance Spell Drought for Magicka Restoration, Major Intellect, Major Sorcery, and Major Prophecy. Now, the reason we are a Stage 3 Vampire, guys, because I just realized I didn't go over that. We are a Stage 3 Vampire for a couple of different passives, but actually just one really in particular, and that's going to be Undeath. This reduces your damage taken by up to 30% based on your missing health, and to me, this feels quite necessary, this patch, on most of my characters. It's just the damage reduction that comes from this is really high, and because we do have a solid health pool in this build, we can take really good advantage of this passive. So this just makes you that much tankier and that much harder to take down when your HP gets lower, so it's harder for people to chop through your shields as well as to actually get through the different heals that you have in the build. Now, guys, moving into our champion points here, we run Deadly Aim and Mastered Arms for single target and direct damage increases. This basically just is going to increase all of the damage in our kit. We run Duelist Rebuff for single target damage reduction, as well as Ironclad for direct damage reduction. We have Boundless Vitality for that big max health bonus, again, health meta, so it's going to be very useful for us there. We run Sustained by Suffering for increased recovery while under the status of a negative effect. We have Pain's Refuge for 2% damage reduction for every 2 negative effects on our character, up to a maximum of 20%. And then we do run Bastion to increase the effectiveness of our damage shield by 15%. Green CP is obviously going to be personal. Now, guys, the rotation for the build I've kind of already gone over in length just by talking about the build, but basically your goal is going to be to maintain Boundless Storm on yourself, as well as maintain Elemental Drain and Haunting Curse on your enemies. And then basically your goal is just going to be to light attack weave with with Crushing Shock and your light attacks, and then whenever you proc Crystal Frags, just press Crystal Frags and then have it do its damage. As you build up more ultimate, you're basically going to just add Power Overload into the mix. So basically you're going to do the light attack, Crushing Shock, weave until you proc Crystal Frags, go into the Power Overload, and then you're going to do light attack with the overload with the Crystal Frags, hitting at the same time as the Haunted Curse, and then all the damage deals and your opponent explodes and then they die. It's a pretty simple strategy, in my opinion, where the kind of I guess you could say the struggle point of magsorc, especially for newer magsorcs, is the defensive play. You need to kind of get used to your shields almost being treated as a buff. So when you're in the middle of combat, going through all this stuff, and you're actively brawling, you want to just go and hit one shield. Hit a shield, go in, do your damage, right? And then if they'll say you're taking even more damage now, go into 2 shields, okay? And then do your damage, do your damage, do your damage, do your damage. And then, okay, no, I'm starting to take a lot of heat now. So then we go rapid regen into shields, okay? You want to make sure that you think of your defense, right? Think of your shields as preventative defense, while your rapid regen and dark conversion are reactive defense, okay? Another thing with magsorc is that you don't just want to sit there and just try to tank it out in the middle of combat with your shields and just sit here and spam your shields and try to tank people out, okay? You want to, heal yourself, apply a couple of shields, right? But then get out with streak. Get out, re-shield yourself, re-heal yourself, create some distance, okay, and then deal your damage from range, okay? You're not a melee class, so you want to actually create that distance with streak. It is extremely important. Plus, when you create that distance with streak, assuming your opponent is a melee target, they are now dealing no damage to you, so it gives you that space to heal yourself back up, apply those damage shields, and just defend yourself, and then get back into combat. But guys, I think with that note, that's going to be it for me today, covering the new magsorc build. I hope you guys did like it. If you did, please smack a like on the build. It really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. If you guys have any questions about the magsorc build, please feel free to leave a comment below. Or if you just like the build, let me know down below. Again, like I said, it really does help me in the algorithm quite a lot. And for more ESO, Ascending Tide, PvP builds, feel free to hit the sub button as well as the bell to keep those notifications on. Thank you all so much for stopping by today. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dots Gaming, and I'll see you all next time.